Let's understand sort with compare function. So if you want to customize the behavior of the default sort for the array, we can use the compare sort function as a parameter for the sort method. Let's try to understand with small examples here. Very first thing, let's try to figure it out why exactly we need a custom sort. What's the problem with an inbuilt sort? So I'm having an array here which is holding some numbers in that. Okay. Me just console it and confirm everything is good. Yes. Now array dot sort. So this is the default mechanism available in which it is clearly specified. If we are not specifying the compare function, so it will use by default the ASCII character order. That's perfectly fine. Let's see now. So we are able to see it's perfectly working 1, 2, 3. But the problem arises when I'm making it 10 here. What's happening here? So initially 2 should come, then 3 should come, and then 10 should come. See the outcome here, it will be 10, 2, 3. Why? Because as we have already seen here, the comparison is happening based on the ASCII character order. Of course, the ASCII character order for the one is less than 2 and 3. So that's the reason 10 is coming at the start and 2 and 3 are going after that. So this is the reason it is not considering as a whole number. It is treating as each and every single individual character with its ASCII value. So if you just open the ASCII table here, so you can see the value of 1 is 49 and the value of 2 is 50 and 3 is 51. So even though I'm mentioning 10 here, it doesn't matter because it just compare with the first one and then next. So the first one is 49. So of course the precedence of the 1 or the 10, this element will become the first in my sorting as per the ASCII order. This is a problem with the default sort. So to customize this behavior, we need to customize the compare function. If you hover your cursor here, you can see we can pass a compare function to that. So what exactly this compare function does? So what do the sorting algorithm JavaScript runs in background by using this sort mechanism? So whenever any two numbers will be picked up or two elements will be picked up, how these two elements should get compared with each other, that behavior we need to define. We don't need to work on the algorithm like first element or the binary sort or maybe the any other sort of algorithm. We don't need to deal with that. That JavaScript is doing for you. You just need to specify the compare function. If there are two numbers, how the comparison should work. So in this case, you can see there are two inputs, number one and the number two. And based upon that, we need to give a number as an output to that function. So what is this number? So you can read out the description here. The function used to determine the order of the elements. It is expected to return a negative value if the first argument is less than the second argument. It means if we are passing two arguments to a compare function, if the first argument is less than the second argument, so it should return a negative value. And that's the reason if you see, they have given here a sample example as well, a comma b, and they're using an arrow function and returning a minus b. So of course, if a is less than b, the expression will return a negative value here. Let's say, for example, this is in this case, it is 1 and it is 3. So of course, it will become minus 2. In the second case, if the second value is the bigger than the first value, if the first value is the bigger than the second value, it should return a positive value, like the way they have mentioned here. And if both are equal, it should return a 0, so that there will be no change in sequence for the sorting algorithm. So this is how the compare function works. So let's create a small compare function here. So creating a compare function which needs two argument. So I can use arrow function syntax here. I'll say for a comma b here, and I'll say a minus b simply. What exactly is happening? So this compare function, we are specifying if there are two numbers are coming up, how the comparison should happen. And the result of this comparison will be only three. One is positive, second is negative, and the third one will be 0. And based upon that, the sort mechanism will work. Let's see how the sorting works now. That's perfect. So we are getting 2, 3, and 10. And this is what we needed initially. We understood if there is minus or plus, the change in sequence is happening. Let's try to do something else here. For example, 1, 2, 3. So initially itself the array is sorted, and let me also make it, for example, more similar values over here like this. And let's try to run the same code again. So here, the third behavior that I told you, if a minus b is 0, so positions won't change by using a compare function. So that scenario we can understand here. This scenario we can more understand with array of object with a stable sort. In this case, there might not be any difference. For example, if this is a 2 or this is a 2 will remaining at its own place. In my final output, if it is changing its place, we are not able to detect because both are having the same values. But if we are using array of object, we can check this consistency, like it's a stable sort or not. That's perfect. Let's try to see the next one. In the next behavior, we'll try to introduce some null values. Let's say, for example, this is 10, this is 3. Let's see, everything is good. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll try to introduce an empty slots in my array. I just want to understand what happens if I'm putting an empty slot in my array. So there is an empty slot. Let's see what happens. Yes. So if there is an empty slot, the empty slot is getting pushed at the end of your array. So we understood that if you're performing a sort on any array, all the empty slots will be pushed at the end of the array. Let's try to add one more empty slot at the start of the array. So there are now 1 and 2, two empty slots in my array. All the empty slots are getting pushed at the end. Perfect. Along with this, we'll also try to understand if there is something a null value in our array. What will happen with that? Because of course the comparison cannot happen with the null. So let's see what happens for the null. Yeah. So null is pushing at the start of the array if you're performing a sort. That's a strange behavior, but this is how the nulls are getting pushed at the start of the array with our scenario here. Let's try to add one more null here. Yes, all the nulls we are pushing at the start here. Okay. This could be also reason because when you're using a null will get converted to 0 when they are putting into some expression. That could be one of the possible reason in this case, we can say. Let's say try to use undefined. What happens with undefined? Okay. Let me try adding undefined over here. Undefined are just one step behind the empty from the back side. Let me try to add undefined before number 10 here, or maybe at the start to be more specific with this now. Yes, all the undefineds are getting pushed at the end before the empty slots. So this is how we just try to understand if there are nulls, undefined, or the empty slots in our array, what's happening with the custom logic we created. Let's try to do the same thing with the default sort. What's happening here? So with the default sort, all the null, all the undefined, and all the empty slots are going at the end. And there is a specific reason for that. As I told you, when you're using a null value inside an expression, null will get converted to 0. If you want to prove that, what we will do, we'll say log. So ideally it should throw some error because it is not an ideal case where we are making 1 plus null. But let's see what's an output for this. So you can see the output at line number 9 is 1. It means this null is getting converted to 0, and that's the reason 1 plus 0 is 1. And this is the reason when we are using a custom sort mechanism here, we are saying a minus b. So maybe this null is getting converted to 0 and somehow the null are getting pushed ahead in our sorted array. But in the default one, all the null, all the undefined, all the empty slots, all the falsy values are getting pushed at the end of the array. So this is how all the falsy values work in sort. Let's try to see one more quick example. So in this example, if you are using any characters which are beyond the ASCII characters, so how the sorting will behave for that and how we can write a custom logic or maybe for the string, because we have seen for the numbers only, we haven't seen for the strings. So let's try to perform some sorting operation on string. Then we'll also see if we are using any string character which are beyond the ASCII characters, maybe the special characters, how it will work, maybe the different languages like French, if you put, so how the sorting will work. Let's see. So I'm creating one more array here. Let's say I'm giving B here, then A and C. Let me confirm all things are working fine. Yes, we are getting our array. Let's perform a default sort. Yeah, the sorting is happening based upon ABC, the ASCII order value. That's perfect. Now let's try to add the custom logic A comma B by using a compare function. So how the A and B will be compared. And before going to this, let's try to introduce some problem over here. So the problem is, for example, if I include small a, here we go. So the problem is the A is coming at the end because the ASCII value for the small a letter is bigger than B and C, which is not correct if we do the ascending sort. So we need to write a custom compare function for this. I'll convert all the characters, all the string to the lowercase. I'll mention less than p dot lowercase. Okay. So this is how, what exactly we are trying to do. We are trying to convert what is the two elements are coming, the string elements are coming for the comparison. Firstly, we are comparing it to a lowercase and then we are performing a comparison out of it. That's the reason there will be no problem in this. And remember one thing, we are not changing the original A and B here. We are just making a temporary conversion here. It is not changing original string. It is just representing or reproducing a new string out of it with a lowercase syntax. Actually, when we are performing a comparison between A and B here, like firstly, it should be a function here because it returns a string, a lowercase version of string. And secondly, this less than operator will just return true and false. But our sort mechanism don't need the true and false. We need a positive value, how much difference is there. We need a negative value, how much difference is there in negative, or we need a zero. These three different cases only we need. We don't need a true and false statement. So this will not be sufficient in our case. And that's the reason if you have seen here, we have used one A minus B. We haven't used A is less than B. Okay, so what we will do, first of all, we'll convert A to a lowercase. Then we'll also do the same for B as well. And now here I'll say if A is less than B, so return -1. Else if A is greater than B, then return +1. Else I want to return 0 because in the else compulsorily both are equal. That's the reason they have skipped if and else if block. So this is a very simple scenario in which my sort compare function is returning minus value, plus value, and the 0 value based upon the values preferences, and we have converted to a lowercase. Let's see the outcome now. So we are getting a perfect outcome here now, A, B, and the C. So even though now I use a different small letter, capital letter, it will not create any problem for me. So this is how we sorted out the problem with the string comparison. Even our string are not like they should not be taken care of case sensitive matter here. Let's also try with special characters here, or maybe the special symbols here which are beyond the ASCII characters, so that we can have more different scenarios here. So these are the few words I picked up. Like these are not in ASCII characters. So here, if I perform the normal sort, let's see how it happens. So if we do the normal sort here, so this is how it's coming. But if you clearly see here, here the Z is coming before this particular E. Of course, this E is not a normal E. It's a French letter which should come earlier before Z in this case. But due to the ASCII character sequence, it is going at the end. So that could be the reason for that. So what is the by default comparison is there that is not suiting in this case? So we have to customize the behavior for sorting. So let's quickly write a compare function for the same. Okay. And here, what simply I can use a dot locally compare. So there is something called locally compare, which will help us to compare the values in a locally format in a respective language. So here, let me pass the parameter b here. And now this locally will return you the number based upon the positive difference, negative difference, or the zero if they are equal. And now let's see the outcome. So it's perfect, perfect. And this is what we solve the problem now, and the Z is at the end. So this is how we can customize the behavior of a sort by using a compare function for a different requirement in JavaScript.